When I first started researching this topic, I quickly realized that tuna sustainability is not a straightforward topic. In this video, I will try to make you understand why it's the case. Secondly, I will try to give you my best assessment on how to find a sustainable tuna. And finally, I will give you an amazing insight that I found while researching for this topic. So make sure to stick to the very end. So without further ado, let's go. So I started doing what most people would do. I started looking at the species of tuna. You have 5 main species of tuna. First of all, you have skipjack. It is one of the most consumed types, especially in canned products. It looks very chunky in the can. In the United States, most canned products are actually skipjack. If we take only species into account, skipjack may be the most sustainable of all tunas. For a very simple reason. It is the most fecund. Fecund simply means that it's the one that reproduces the quickest. Then you have albacore. It is also very popular in cans, although it can still be used in steaks because it's less chunky and it's bigger in size. However, we're still talking about quite cheap tuna. After that, you have yellowfin tuna. It is one of the most beloved and versatile types of tuna. It can be used in cans, steaks, and even affordable sushi. Its conservation status is, however, murky, to say the least. You're gonna understand why in the next part. Now we start getting into high-end tuna. BK tuna is very appreciated for its high quality meat and its fatty content. It is very popular in sushi, especially because the next type of tuna is much more expensive. And now we have bluefin tuna. It is by far the tastiest, most expensive, and also endangered type of tuna. A single bluefin tuna once sold for over $3 million US in the Tokyo seafood market. It is the one that we grew up listening about the fact that it was endangered and we needed to protect tuna populations. But then looking at the data closely, I realized that looking at the species was clearly not enough. Did you thought that those tunas were scattered homogeneously across the entire world? Think again. It became clear that the conservation status was not only depending on the species, but also on the area where it was fished. And that became a rabbit hole in and of itself. That's also when I started digging into scientific papers and where scientists were contradicting themselves on the research. That's when I really started to freak out. I was like, how am I supposed to present this information to people? Should I need to tell them, oh, you need to look to North Pacific bluefin tuna because South Pacific is not good and this and that? No, it's impossible. You're never gonna remember this, and I'm not gonna remember it too. Do you really think you remember that when you're in the grocery store, you're hungry, your kids are waiting for you, your dog is waiting to be walked, you need to go to work? No, obviously not. I needed to find an heuristic. A heuristic is any approach to problem solving that doesn't give you a fully optimized answer, but still provides a good enough result for it to work. That's when I realized that I overlooked a very specific aspect of tuna fishing, the fishing method. You will understand why it matters in a minute. Here's a clip from the Ocean documentary by David Attenborough, where it showcases the damages caused by bottom trawling. This is a fishing method that is extremely destructive and creates an amazing amount of bycatch. However, tuna is not fished in this way, but this shows you how a fishing method can actually create a sustainable approach to fishing or a non-sustainable approach to fishing. We often try to understand sustainable fishing by fishing quotas, but those quotas don't often take into account the fact that the fish itself can be caught with a method that impacts its environment. And you know what is the good news about the fishing method? Is that as a consumer, it is extremely easy information to get. In countries like the United States or in regions like Europe, it is often mandatory to be put in the packages. And even if you don't have that information, the supermarket or the fish shop needs to have that information. Now that you understand that the fishing method actually really matters, we're going to go over the different fishing methods for tuna. The first fishing method is purse seine. This is by far the most destructive one. It is composed of large nets that engulf entire schools of tuna. However, the problem with this method is that it's mostly unselective and also catches other things than tuna, for example sharks, dolphins, birds, turtles, all that kind of stuff. This method is particularly destructive when combined with fish aggregation devices. You know, in the open ocean, there are no places to hide from predators. So when you put a structure on the ocean, it becomes an essential shelter where a lot of animals can actually aggregate in and protect themselves. This is what FADs actually exploit on. They allow the fish to actually shelter there and agglomerate, and then they catch them all at once. This is really bad. Innovations are catching on purse seines and making sure that they're less destructive, but it's still a far cry from being good. Therefore, my recommendation would be to abstain from consuming tuna catch in this way. A notable trade-off, however, could be to use a label, for example the MSC label. I know labels are not perfect, but they provide you with a certain amount of safety and confidence that local regulation may not have. So if, for example, you only find tuna caught on purse seines, maybe go and check for some kind of label like MSC. Another well-known method is long line. As its name suggests, it's simply a long fishing line dotted with baited hooks. This method is less destructive than the seine because you can adjust the size of the hook, the bait, and its depth according to your target species. However, it still provides some bycatch, especially among sharks. Then you have gill nets. They're much less commonly used. Their main goal is to actually entangle fish in the water column. This is a method often used by a lot of traditional fishermen in the Indian Ocean because those nets are very cheap to produce. However, they really get a lot of bycatch, and they're especially deadly for sea turtles because they get entangled into them and they end up drowning. After all this, you're kind of wondering, is there a good and sustainable fishing method for catching tuna? Well, the answer is that there is. Have you ever been fishing? If so, you probably remember having the fishing rod on your hand and waiting perfectly for the fish to actually bite your bait. It's very physical and quite selective. This is not much different from how the most sustainable way of catching tuna actually is done. Let me introduce you to pole and line. This method uses fishermen equipped with fishing rods that catch the tunas one by one. This has some amazing advantages, such as being able to immediately release your bycatch. For example, if you catch a shark instead of a tuna, you can just immediately remove the hook from its mouth, or if it's too dangerous, you can just cut the line and let the shark go back into the ocean. This allows the bycatch, for example the sharks, to be released in a matter of minutes, if not seconds, because you actually really need the fishing rod to go catch some more tuna. Another key advantage that may not really well known in the Western world is the fact that you can actually perform with this method ikejime. Ikejime is a fish slaughtering method that starts with brain spiking the fish, removing its blood, and putting a thin line inside the spinal cord to destroy it. This sounds horrendous to you? Think for a second. If the brain spike is well done, the fish is killed instantly, and the two other steps actually allow for removing any stress signals from the tissues of the fish. This is not only the most ethical method to kill fish, but it's also one that allows you to really improve the quality of your meat. And this single fact can actually make the difference between high quality sushi and Michelin star sushi. Thanks to ikejime, the meat lasts longer, it is able to preserve all its flavors, and it allows to reduce the type of fishy smell that you may have. If you're interested in having a video exclusively about ikejime, let me know down in the comments. The good news is that this fishing method is getting more and more popular as consumers are demanding more sustainable tuna. That led me to understand and discover something quite magical. Remember our conversations about the tuna conservation statuses? Well, one of the things that I did found when I was doing my research is the fact that a lot of what we know about tuna currently is quite outdated. A lot of the data that was talking about endangered species and stuff like this is 10 or even 15 years old. Tuna populations have started rising back again at an astonishing pace. In 2021, Atlantic bluefin tuna was classified from endangered to least concern. It absolutely exceeded its recovery goals thanks to strict management and the implementation of sustainable fishing practices. All the advice and guidance that I provided you here in this video was not to tell you how to actually save tuna from extinction, but rather on how to become a participant in the worldwide ocean recovery, so we can all enjoy one day the beauty, strength, and resilience of a fully healthy ocean, for our benefit and for the benefit of the planet we live in. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already, and give me your feedback in the comment section. See you on the next one.